Owen Vale missed his bus in a town he had never meant to enter, because North put himself between Owen and the open coach door and refused to move. The driver had one hand on the railing. The engine idled under the station awning. Rain tapped on the roof in a steady gray rhythm. Owen stood with a duffel over one shoulder, a paper ticket in his hand, and $31 folded into his wallet. He had planned to change buses, keep moving west, and leave Maple Junction as nothing more than a wet platform between two longer roads. North had other plans. The dog was a broad-chested black shepherd mix with a white blaze on his nose and a serious way of looking at doorways. He had traveled with Owen long enough to know the difference between waiting and leaving. Usually he boarded buses without complaint, tucked himself under Owen's knees, and slept through miles of highway. That morning, he planted all four paws on the concrete, lowered his head, and leaned his full weight away from the coach. The driver tried patience first. Then he tried a joke. Then he checked his watch. Owen did not argue. He had spent enough of his life moving supplies, schedules, and people to know when a route had already changed. He stepped back from the door. North turned at once and walked across the small station lobby, past the vending machine, past the ticket window, and stopped beneath a faded wall map that showed Maple Junction in colors softened by years of sun. His nose pressed against a scratched line marked Loop 8. By the time Owen looked back, the bus door had closed. The coach pulled away with his original plan inside it. Owen watched the red lights vanish into rain, then looked down at North. The dog did not seem sorry. He sat under the map as if the station had finally become useful. Owen had been a Navy quartermaster, which meant he trusted lists more than speeches and believed every system revealed itself through what people touched most. The station lobby told him Maple Junction had once been busier. The benches had smooth places where shoulders had leaned for years. The ticket window still had a brass tray polished by coins, though the clerk said most tickets were digital now. A rack near the door held old route pamphlets, none of them current. Above everything, the wall map had one scratched line clearer than all the printed roads. Loop 8 curved through town and returned to the station. There was no Loop 8 on the current schedule. Owen asked the clerk, a woman with silver hair and a cardigan buttoned wrong at the bottom, whether another bus could take him onward. She clicked through the computer, frowned at the storm, and told him maybe evening, maybe tomorrow if the highway water rose near the county line. She did not ask why he was traveling with one bag and no destination. He appreciated that enough to keep his answers plain. "I can wait," he said. North tapped the wall below Loop 8 with one paw. The clerk looked at the dog, then at Owen. Her name tag read Alma. "That route has been gone a long time," she said. "Gone routes still have reasons," Owen said. Alma studied him as if deciding whether that sentence was foolish or merely familiar. Then she opened a drawer beneath the ticket counter and removed a stack of cards held with a rubber band. They were farm stand tokens, small rectangles of laminated paper, each printed with a number and a green apple. On the back of the top card, someone had written, "Station to Orchard Road, Loop 8, return when settled." North stood. Alma said, "If you are going to follow an old map in the rain, at least start with a token." Owen should have stayed in the lobby. His jacket was thin, his boots were tired, and he had not eaten since dawn. But practical curiosity is a stubborn thing. He tucked the token into his pocket, shifted the duffel higher on his shoulder, and followed North out of the station onto a sidewalk shining with rain. Maple Junction looked like many towns Owen had passed through and almost understood. A diner with fogged windows, a closed dry goods store with paper over the glass, a laundromat with 2 working machines and one that rattled, a feed mill at the edge of town. Old bus stop signs leaned at corners, their paint faded to pale blue. The current bus line used only the station. Loop 8 had once used the whole town. North walked as if he remembered it. At the first corner, he stopped by a metal sign half hidden behind a lilac bush. Owen wiped rain from the face. The sign showed the number 8 inside a circle. Beneath it, someone had scratched a small arrow toward River Street. On the post, a strip of tape held a newer note wrapped in plastic. Pantry shift covered. Ask Ruth for keys. Owen did not know Ruth. He did know a working note when he saw one. Loop 8 had not been a scenic route. It had carried errands. North led him to the diner next. The place was called Millie's, though the woman behind the counter was named Ruth, and the real Millie had retired to a house 2 blocks away, according to the man drinking coffee at the end stool. Ruth looked at Owen's wet coat, the duffel, and North sitting calmly beside the door. Her face did not soften in pity. It sharpened in recognition. "You missed the westbound," she said. "North missed it," Owen said. That answer satisfied her more than a story would have. She pointed to a booth near the window and brought coffee before he ordered. North received a bowl of water without ceremony. On the wall beside the cash register hung a wooden board with cup hooks. Most were empty. 3 held small key tags shaped like bus tickets. 1 was marked Orchard. 1 was marked Mill. 1 was marked Cottage. Owen noticed the last tag but did not reach for it. Ruth set a plate in front of him. Eggs, toast, potatoes. Nothing fancy. Enough. "I did not order this," Owen said. "Loop token covers breakfast," she said. The farm stand token was still in his pocket. He took it out and placed it on the table. Ruth did not pick it up. She nodded toward a coffee can on the counter labeled Returns. Owen stood, dropped the token inside, and heard paper tap paper. North watched every movement, ears lifted. While Owen ate, Ruth told him Loop 8 had once run before sunrise and again near late afternoon. It was not an official bus after the county cut funding. A retired driver named Hal kept it going with a small blue shuttle, then with borrowed vans, then with whatever vehicle passed inspection and could make the circle. People used it for work shifts, appointments, supply runs, and the simple relief of not having to explain why they needed a ride. Adults, Ruth said. People who were starting again and did not need the whole town studying their reasons. Owen looked toward the rain. Starting again was a phrase that could be kind or sharp depending on who said it. Ruth said it like a bus stop. A place, not a verdict. "What happened to it?" he asked. Ruth wiped the counter in a slow line. "Hal's hip got bad. Funding got complicated. Volunteers had jobs. The shuttle sat too long. People made other arrangements. Or said they did." North rose and walked to the keyboard. He touched the cottage tag with his nose. Ruth went still. Owen said, "He has been doing that since morning." Ruth took the tag down but did not hand it to him. "Not yet." Instead, she gave him a folded route pamphlet from under the register. The paper was soft from handling. Loop 8 ran from the station to Millie's, the farm stand on Orchard Road, the feed mill, the clinic offices on Alder, the trade shop at the old cannery, the north laundromat, and back through a row of small cottages once used by drivers. At the bottom, someone had written, Home is the route you can keep. Owen read the sentence twice and disliked how close it came to him. He had been drifting since the last planning job ended. The company had closed its regional office and thanked him with a box of forms he had designed better than they deserved. After that, he took short contracts, warehouse audits, inventory cleanups, seasonal routing. Each time he left before the workplace could decide whether to keep him. Eventually, leaving first became easier than waiting to hear there was no permanent opening. North did not approve of that habit. The dog had begun pausing at certain doors, certain counters, certain benches, as if suggesting the world contained more stopping places than Owen allowed. Loop 8 was the first route North had refused to leave. The rain softened by noon. Owen followed the pamphlet because a route deserved to be checked in order. At the farm stand, a woman named Inez was setting jars of apple butter on a covered table. The stand was closed for the season except for a small side window, but the Loop 8 sign still hung under the eave. North went straight to a crate beneath it and sniffed the wooden slats. Inez came out holding a pencil behind one ear. She did not ask who Owen was. She looked at North and said, "How's Map Dog would have liked him?" Owen had no idea what a map dog was, but he knew better than to interrupt an answer arriving on its own time. Inez opened the crate. Inside were tokens, like the one Alma had given him, sorted into envelopes by stop. Station, diner, mill, laundry, cottage. Some envelopes were empty. Some held notes instead of tokens. Owen read one. Need 2 hands for early shift. Can trade pruning help Sunday? Another note read, ride covered by bakery. Return through mill. These were not bus tickets. They were proof that someone had planned how help could move without becoming a spectacle. Inez said Hal kept tokens here so a person could take one without asking, across a counter. You left what you could later, or you left a note saying what you could trade. He trusted the loop to balance over time. Owen understood balance. He also understood how fragile it could be when nobody maintained the board. The next stop was the feed mill. The building stood at the edge of town, a tall wooden structure with a loading dock and a scale platform that still worked if coaxed. North walked up the dock steps and stopped beside a rusted schedule box. Owen opened it carefully. Inside was a stack of route cards protected in a plastic sleeve. Each card listed a day, a driver, a vehicle, and 3 columns: riders, errands, returns. The last completed card was dated 4 years earlier. Under it was a blank card filled out only halfway. Driver, open. Vehicle, blue van, pending. Riders, see station. Errands, see orchard. Returns, cottage, ready. Cottage ready again. Owen felt the old discomfort of a plan making room for him before he had agreed to anything. A man in a canvas vest came out of the mill office and introduced himself as Ben. He had been pretending not to watch from the window. That was fine. Owen had been pretending not to be tired. They were even. Ben said the blue van still existed. It was parked behind the mill under a tarp, serviced twice a year because Hal had been impossible to refuse, and because after Hal stopped driving, no one wanted to be the person who let the route vanish completely. The van needed a battery, fresh wipers, updated insurance, and someone willing to drive the loop on paper before driving it with passengers. Owen looked down at North. North looked at the schedule box. I am not staying, Owen said, mostly to hear whether the sentence still sounded true. Ben nodded as if Owen had commented on the weather. Route can be walked before it is driven. That afternoon, Owen walked the rest of Loop 8. He found the clinic stop, where an overhang kept the bench dry and a plastic folder held appointment slips without names, only times and pickup points. He found the old cannery trade shop where adults learned repairs, bookkeeping basics, food handling, and machine maintenance in short courses that fit around work. He found the laundromat stop, where a bulletin board listed spare uniforms, interview shirts, and a note that said, "Change jar kept at counter." At every stop, North found the old mark first. Sometimes it was a faded number 8. Sometimes it was a strip of blue paint on a bench leg. Sometimes it was a hook where a token envelope had once hung. Owen had mapped shipping lanes, storerooms, and shore access points. He had tracked routes on clean paper under fluorescent lights. This route was written in touch, shelter, habit, and trust. By the time he returned to the station, evening had settled over Maple Junction. The westbound connection had been delayed again. Alma told him he could still make it if he wanted. She said the words plainly, without pressure. North sat beneath Loop 8. Owen looked at his ticket. The paper had gone soft from rain. He could keep moving. He could arrive somewhere else with the same duffel, the same $31, and the same careful explanation for why he would not need much space. He could keep letting towns remain platforms. Or he could ask one more question. "Where is the driver's cottage?" he said. Alma closed the ticket drawer. "Ruth has the key." Millie's was warm when he arrived. The supper rush had passed, leaving coffee cups, a clean counter, and Ruth counting receipts with a pencil.
She took the cottage tag from the hook and placed it on the counter between them. "Hal kept it ready," she said. "After he stopped, we took turns. Fresh sheets, coffee, soap, a few groceries. Not charity. A driver cannot keep a route if he has nowhere to sleep." Owen did not touch the key. "I have not agreed to drive." Ruth nodded. "Then do not drive. Sleep. Walk the route again tomorrow. Decide with dry socks." That was the most practical invitation anyone had given him in months. The cottage stood behind a row of maples 2 blocks from the station. It was small, with a porch barely wide enough for one chair and a roof that needed attention but did not leak. A blue number 8 was painted on the mailbox. Inside, the air smelled of cedar, clean linen, and a coffee tin that had been opened recently. There were towels folded on a shelf, soup in the pantry, a stack of route cards on the table, and a narrow bed made with a quilt in blue and green squares. On the kitchen table was an envelope. Owen Vale, temporary route steward. He stepped back as if the name had spoken too loudly. North walked around him, sniffed the chair, then the pantry, then the envelope. He sat beside it and waited. Owen opened the envelope because not opening it would have been more dramatic than he could tolerate. Inside was a letter in Alma's handwriting, though later he learned the wording had passed through half the town before she copied it clean. It said Owen's name had come from a plain request he had sent months earlier to a regional work board asking for short-term logistics or routing work in towns that still used paper records. He had forgotten the message almost as soon as he sent it. Maple Junction had not forgotten. The board posting had reached Ben at the mill, then Ruth, then Alma. They had planned to offer him a 3-week route audit if he ever answered. He had not answered because the email went to an account he rarely checked. Then he stepped off a bus in their station. North found the map before anyone had to make the invitation awkward. Owen sat down at the kitchen table. The chair did not wobble. That seemed unnecessarily moving. Temporary route steward was not a grand title. It was a job with tasks. Walk the loop, check stops, inventory tokens, inspect the van.
Update timing. Train backup drivers. Write what worked and what did not. 3 weeks of paid work with the cottage included, and no promise beyond that unless the route proved useful. That was exactly the kind of offer Owen trusted. North climbed onto the small rug near the stove, turned twice, and lay down with a sigh that settled the room. The next morning, Owen made coffee in the cottage before sunrise and read every route card on the table. The cards told a story without decoration. Monday, early mill shift, 2 riders, 1 laundry bag, 1 return token. Tuesday, clinic morning, 3 stops, orchard crates delivered to diner. Wednesday, trade shop, toolbox, uniform exchange. Thursday, farm stand, pantry order, return through station.
Friday, open errands, all stops as needed. The old route had not carried people only from place to place. It carried the small pieces that made showing up possible. Owen spent the day with a clipboard. North wore a blue bandana Inez had left on the porch rail and acted as if the route had hired him too. At each stop, Owen measured shelter, bench condition, sight lines, walking distance, and whether a person could wait without feeling displayed. That last item mattered more than the old county forms had understood. The official bus stop at the station was visible to everyone. Loop 8 stops were placed where a person could be found without being watched. At the clinic, the bench needed a new backslat. At the laundromat, the token envelope hook had snapped. At the cannery trade shop, the printed schedule in the window was 3 years old. At the farm stand, the crate system still worked, but the labels had faded. At Millie's, the keyboard needed more tags than hooks. Owen wrote all of it down. He also wrote what North noticed. The dog paused longer at corners where traffic noise made conversation hard. He avoided a puddled stretch behind the mill, which meant wet shoes for anyone walking from the south stop. He stood calmly beside people who recognized the bandana and asked whether Loop 8 was coming back. By late afternoon, Owen had answered that question 7 times. Testing, he said each time. People accepted testing. It sounded honest. On the 3rd day, Ben rolled back the tarp from the blue van. It was smaller than Owen expected, with a high roof, wide steps, and the number 8 painted on both doors. The paint was faded but clean under the dust. North sniffed the tires, sneezed at the rear bumper, and hopped into the open side door before Owen could invite him. Ben handed Owen the maintenance folder. "I am not promising anything," Owen said. Ben pointed to the folder. "The van is not sentimental. It either passes inspection or it does not." That was the right answer. They spent 2 days making the van worthy of the route. New battery, new wipers, tire check, brake inspection by a licensed mechanic in the next town, fresh emergency kit with blankets, water, and a flashlight. Owen added a clipboard mount, a token box, and a plastic sleeve for route cards. Ruth cleaned the interior without discussing it. Inez brought apple muffins labeled driver food. Alma updated the station wall map with a removable Loop 8 strip so no one would mistake testing for official service before they were ready. North supervised from the open side door. The first test drive carried no passengers. Owen drove, Ben rode with the maintenance folder, and North stood behind Owen's seat until the first stop, when he decided the floor mat near the side door gave him the best view. They drove the loop slowly, timing each turn. Owen found 2 streets where the van could not safely stop without blocking a delivery lane, so he adjusted the pickup points by half a block. He noted where the afternoon sun hit the windshield, where the station sign was hard to read at dusk, and where a person carrying groceries would need a closer bench. The route was not ready because it was old. It would be ready because someone cared enough to update it. At the cottage that night, Owen spread the new map on the table. North rested his head on the corner labeled Station. Owen moved his paw gently. "I need that stop," he said. North placed the paw back. Owen laughed for the first time since stepping off the bus. The second week brought the first riders, though Ruth insisted on calling them testers. A man from the trade shop needed a ride to the mill office for paperwork. A woman at the clinic asked whether the van could stop by the laundromat on the return. Theo, who managed the station vending contracts, needed a crate delivered to Orchard Road. Nothing dramatic happened. No one made speeches. The van left on time, stopped where the card said it would stop, and returned with 3 tokens in the box and 1 note asking whether Thursday could include the resale shop. That note pleased Owen more than praise. A route people used would start asking for changes. A route no one trusted stayed neat on paper. North became the reason strangers climbed aboard without stiff shoulders. He greeted each person, then settled back by the side door. He did not beg for attention. He simply made the van feel less like a service and more like a room already occupied by calm. Owen watched people relax when North looked at them and then looked away. That was a skill. The dog gave people privacy better than many humans did. Word moved through Maple Junction the way practical news always moves. Quietly, then all at once. Alma received 3 phone calls asking whether Loop 8 was real again. Ruth ran out of return tokens and printed temporary ones on diner receipt paper. Inez brought the crate system back to the farm stand window. Ben added a route board near the mill office. The trade shop offered to host a map table on Fridays so adults could plan errands without standing at the station counter. Owen kept saying testing. By the end of the second week, testing had become work. The old blue van passed inspection. The town council approved limited service 3 mornings a week because Owen's logs showed exactly how many stops, errands, and returned tokens had moved during the trial. The paperwork was plain, which helped. No one had to argue about feelings when the route cards showed a mechanic getting to the mill, a cook reaching an early shift, a bookkeeper finding the clinic, and 3 people using the laundromat stop without missing work. The route did what it said it would do. Still, Owen had one problem left. 3 weeks ended on a Friday. His original bus ticket had been reissued twice and still sat in Alma's drawer. He could take it west. He could let Loop 8 be a good temporary job, a useful chapter, a thing he had restored and left behind before anyone had to decide what to do with him. North solved that by stealing his duffel. The dog did not damage it. He simply dragged it from beside the cottage bed to the kitchen table, then sat between Owen and the door. In his mouth was the cottage key tag, which Ruth had apparently handed him during supper, because nobody in Maple Junction respected a man's attempt to keep his decisions private from his dog. Owen set the duffel upright. North placed 1 paw on it. "You have made your position clear," Owen said. The next morning, Alma called a meeting in the station lobby. Owen almost refused until she told him it was about scheduling, not him. That was mostly true. Ruth came with the keyboard. Ben came with the maintenance folder. Inez brought the token envelopes. The trade shop manager brought a calendar. 3 riders came because they had opinions about stop times and did not intend to let the route be designed around guesses. Owen stood beneath the wall map where North had first pressed his nose to Loop 8. The scratched line was still visible under the new removable strip. Alma had cleaned the glass but left the scratch. A mark that brought a route back deserved to stay. They worked for 2 hours. Morning loop on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Errand loop Thursday afternoon. Token returns at station, diner, farm stand, and mill. Cottage maintained by route fund, not personal favors. Backup drivers trained in pairs. North listed unofficially as station dog,
though Owen objected to unofficially and lost. At the end, Alma placed a new envelope on the ticket counter. Inside was a simple contract for a 6-month route steward position. Part-time driving, part-time coordination, review at winter. The pay was modest, but real. The duties were clear. The route had enough work to justify itself and enough people behind it to keep from resting on one man's shoulders. Owen read every line. He checked the start date. He checked the cancellation terms. He checked the maintenance responsibilities. He checked the line that said, "Route steward may recommend revisions after 30 days." Then he signed. North rested his chin on the counter exactly where the pen had been. No one clapped. Ruth said she had soup on at the diner. Ben asked whether Owen preferred the van washed before or after the afternoon loop. Inez said the Orchard Road stop needed a new crate lid. Alma slid the old westbound ticket out of the drawer and stamped it void, not with drama, but with the satisfying thump of paperwork becoming honest. Owen kept the voided ticket. He placed it in the cottage drawer beside the first Loop 8 token. The route settled into him by repetition. Morning coffee at the cottage. Check oil, tires, wipers, token box. North's bandana tied square. Station departure at 6:35. Diner stop at 6:40. Farm stand at 6:52 if the weather was clear, 6:57 if the road fogged. Mill by 7:10. Clinic by 7:20. Trade shop by 7:35. Laundry by 7:45. Station return at 8. Precision made kindness dependable. Maple Junction began to show itself differently from the driver's seat. Owen learned which porch lights meant someone was ready early. He learned which riders liked the front seat because conversation steadied them, and which liked the back because quiet helped them prepare for the day. He learned that tokens came back in odd ways, folded into napkins, clipped to route cards, tucked under the farm stand crate lid, dropped into the station return can with a note that said, "Add 1 for the next person." He did not ask people why they needed the route. He asked where they were going and when they needed to be back. That was enough. North became expert at keeping the van calm. If a rider hurried in apologizing, he would stand, wag once, then lie down as if the schedule had already made room. If someone forgot a bag, he noticed. Twice he blocked the door until Owen checked the floor and found an envelope, then a set of work gloves. At the laundromat, he learned the sound of the change jar lid. At the farm stand, he learned that Inez kept a biscuit in the left apron pocket and considered this official route policy. One Thursday, a new rider boarded at the station carrying a folder and the tired face of someone between plans. He asked what the fare was. Owen pointed to the token box and explained the loop in simple terms. Take a token if you need one. Return it when you can. Leave a note if you can trade useful time. Paid rides keep the van moving. Paid forward rides keep the door open. The rider listened, then looked at North. "Does it work?" he asked. Owen thought of the missed bus, the scratched line, the cottage envelope, the blue van under a tarp, and the way a town had hidden welcome inside ordinary objects, so no one had to stand in the open asking for it. "It works, if we keep it honest," he said. The rider nodded and took a token. The honesty took more labor than a kind sentence could carry. Owen learned that quickly. Tokens had to be counted without turning people into numbers. Stops had to be timed without making anyone feel rushed. The van had to be warm enough before the first pickup, clean enough for someone heading to work, and plain enough that no rider felt announced to the town. The route cards needed names for the driver but initials for passengers, because the old system had understood privacy better than many modern forms. On Friday afternoons, Owen sat at the map table in the cannery trade shop and updated the loop with anyone who came. The table was scarred maple, wide enough for route cards, coffee cups, and elbows. The first week, only Alma came, mostly to make sure Owen had not invented a system no one else could read. The second week, Ruth came with a diner schedule and a list of early shifts. The third week, 2 riders came because the clinic stop felt too exposed when the wind came from the west. Owen listened, moved the stop half a block, and drove the change the next morning to make sure the turn still worked. That small change did more for trust than any announcement. People saw that Loop 8 could adjust without losing its shape. A woman from the resale shop asked whether Thursday errands could include a side door pickup when she had heavy donation bags. A man from the mill asked whether the afternoon loop could pause near the bank on the first Friday of the month. Inez asked for a 10-minute window during harvest weeks, not because she needed a ride, but because crates needed to reach Millie's before the lunch rush. Owen wrote each request on a card and sorted them by type. Route, timing, errand, maintenance, courtesy. He pinned the cards to a corkboard in the cottage kitchen until the wall looked like a chart room for a town that did not know it had become one. North had his own board in practice, though not on paper. He knew which riders carried lunch tins, which riders forgot gloves, and which riders pretended not to want the seat nearest the heater. He knew that the woman from the clinic liked to scratch his shoulder once before opening her folder, and that the man with the lamp repair tags needed quiet until the mill stop. He knew when Ruth had slipped extra biscuits into Owen's coat pocket and considered it his duty to verify the inventory. One wet Wednesday, North refused to let Owen close the side door at the laundromat stop. There were no riders listed. No one stood under the awning. Owen checked the card, checked his watch, and looked at the dog. North stayed planted with his head turned toward the alley. 30 seconds later, Ravi, the lamp repairman, came around the corner with a cardboard box held against his chest and rain dripping from his cap. He had the wrong pickup time written on a scrap of paper. The old Owen would have called that an error and adjusted the next card. The new Owen still adjusted the card, but first he held the door open and gave the man time to breathe. At the next map table, Owen added a new rule. If a stop had repeated confusion, the sign was wrong, not the rider. Alma liked that enough to print it on a small card for the station office. Ruth asked for one at the diner. Ben pretended the sentence was obvious, then copied it onto the millboard in block letters. The route also revealed where Maple Junction had been making do in ways that cost people time. The laundromat change jar ran empty on Thursdays because 3 work shifts used it on the same morning. The clinic overhang dripped directly onto the bench when rain blew sideways. The farm stand crate was too low for people with stiff backs. The station token can made a loud metal sound that caused everyone in the lobby to look up when someone returned a token, which defeated the entire point of returning quietly. Owen fixed what he could and assigned what he could not. A rubber liner softened the token can. Ben raised the farm stand crate on a wooden frame. The clinic maintenance worker shifted the gutter after Owen showed him the drip pattern. Ruth started keeping rolls of quarters in labeled envelopes behind the diner counter to be exchanged with no questions beyond how many. None of these repairs looked large enough for a newspaper photo. Together, they changed how the route felt. People stopped apologizing before using it. They stepped on, nodded to North, placed a token in the box or took one out, and sat where they needed to sit. That was when Owen understood the cottage differently. It was not a reward for the driver. It was part of the infrastructure. If the route steward slept 2 towns away, morning service would depend on perfect weather, perfect energy, and perfect timing. The cottage made consistency possible. It kept the person responsible close enough to notice when a sign loosened, when a bench shifted, when the station map needed a new sleeve. A route that promised dignity had to be nearby enough to keep its promises. One evening, Owen found 3 envelopes on the cottage table. Alma had left the first, with updated rider initials. Ruth had left the second, with a diner key in case weather delayed the morning coffee delivery. Inez had left the third, with a note that said, "First apple crate of spring goes on the van. Do not argue." Owen read the notes while North inspected the apple crate in the corner. The room felt less like temporary lodging and more like the place where the loop's loose ends came to rest. Still, he kept one drawer empty. Habit, mostly. A person who had moved often learned to preserve an exit. The drawer sat beside the bed, clean and unused, until the afternoon North nosed it open and dropped the blue bandana inside. Owen stood in the doorway and stared at it. "You are not subtle," he said. North wagged once. Owen put socks in the drawer that night. The next day he added root gloves, spare pens, and the old pamphlet Ruth had given him. By the end of the week, the drawer was no longer empty. Nothing dramatic happened when he filled it. The cottage simply became easier to use. The first full schedule began on a Monday with frost on the station roof. Alma unlocked the lobby early and found 2 people waiting under the Loop 8 map, both holding tokens, neither speaking much. Owen did not rush them. He checked the card, opened the van, and let North take his place first. Ruth came out of Millie's with a thermos bag and handed it through the driver's window. Ben called from the mill to report the South Road clear. Inez left a crate under the stand eave with 3 envelopes clipped to the lid. The loop moved because every ordinary object was ready. At the clinic stop, the shifted gutter kept the bench dry. At the trade shop, the map table had a fresh stack of cards. At the laundromat, the change envelope sat behind the counter. At the station, the token can made no loud sound when a rider returned a card. Owen logged each detail because details had carried the route back long before anyone called it service. When he parked the van after the last run, North stayed in his seat instead of jumping down. Owen turned off the engine, listened to the metal settle, and waited. The dog looked toward the station map through the windshield. On the wall, Loop 8 now appeared in blue, but the old scratch still ran beneath it. The new line and the old scar matched almost perfectly. Owen got out, walked into the lobby, and added 1 sentence to the bottom of the public schedule. Route may change when care requires it. Alma read it, nodded, and taped it straight. At the end of Owen's first month, he walked the loop alone after the afternoon route, with North trotting ahead in the mild light. He checked every stop the way he had on that first rainy day. The station map was clean. Millie's keyboard had more hooks. The farm stand crate had fresh labels. The feed mill schedule box held current cards. The clinic bench had a new slat. The trade shop window listed Friday map table hours. The laundromat hook had a small sign that said, "Return tokens here." Nothing looked magical. That was why it worked. The route was visible enough to use and quiet enough to trust. When Owen reached the cottage, he found a new sign on the porch rail. Alma had printed it, Ruth had sealed it, and Ben had screwed it in place with the exact level of fuss he claimed to dislike.
It read, Loop 8, Cottage, Route Steward, present. Owen stood there with North beside him and felt something he had not allowed himself to name from the beginning. Present. Not passing through. Not available for temporary work in some other town. Not waiting for the next polite refusal. Present. He unlocked the door. The cottage held coffee, clean towels, route cards, a drying bandana, and the quiet smell of cedar. North went to the stove rug and turned twice before lying down. Owen hung the duffel in the closet for the first time instead of leaving it by the door. After that, the old westbound road still existed, and buses still left from Maple Junction every day. Owen watched them go from the station awning while North sat under the Loop 8 map. He no longer felt the pull to board just because the door was open. A route had found him, or North had found it, which in practical terms amounted to the same thing. On the first clear morning of spring, Alma replaced the temporary strip on the wall map with a printed Loop 8 line in clean blue ink. She let Owen hold one corner while she smoothed the paper. Ruth held the other corner. Ben checked that it was level. Inez stood behind them with a crate of tokens. North sat below the map, nose lifted toward the scratched mark that had started everything. The scratch remained visible under the new line. Owen liked that. A repaired route did not need to hide where it had gone missing. At 6:35, he opened the van door. The first rider stepped aboard. North took his place by the side door. Owen checked the card, touched the key, and pulled away from the station with Maple Junction waking around him. Millie's windows glowed. Orchard Road waited under mist. The mill sign turned gold in the first light. The loop carried them out and brought them back. That was the whole promise, and it was enough. Owen Vale had missed the bus he thought he needed because a loyal dog refused to leave a scratched line on an old station map. What looked like a delay became a route. What looked like a closed town became a system of tokens, benches, keys, and careful stops. What looked like a stocked cottage for a stranger became a home for the person willing to keep the loop honest. And every morning after that, when Owen drove Loop 8 and North watched the doors, the town did not ask anyone to explain why they needed a ride. It simply kept the route moving, stop by stop, token by token, carrying people through ordinary errands with their dignity intact, and always bringing them back to a place where someone expected them to return.